The question, of course, is how do you apply a process like that to a practical situation, like an innovation process in an organization or a company, or a transformation and change initiative in a larger system? And that has been, over the past 15 plus years, very much the key focus of our action research that we have been conducting here with many colleagues around the world. And what emerged from that is a 5-stage process. The first stage is about co-initiating, which means kind of bringing together all the multiple stakeholders that need to work together in order to change the system. So in this case, it was in Namibia, a healthcare transformation initiative around maternal health. It involved all the key players in the system and making them connect with each other and understanding the system, the bottlenecks, and forming an intention about the change they wanted to make to happen together. And then when the project team was launched, they went into the second stage, which is the co-sensing. The co-sensing is really walking in the shoes of all the different stakeholders and going to the places of most potential. So in this case, for example, they went out in these multi-stakeholder groups and walked in the shoes of the most remote users, of women in remote villages with no access to healthcare services, and feeling the situation and experiencing kind of the system from their angle, and so on and so forth. And then the third stage is about sense-making and co-inspiring, bringing together all the insights that come here from the learning and the sensing activities into a retreat kind of where all these insights are viewed at together in order to understand where the current system is at, where the bottlenecks are, and where the high leverage potentials are for transformative initiatives. And then as some of these ideas got generated and result from here, then these ideas get, in the fourth stage, explored through prototyping, through moving into rapid cycle, small-scale experiment that generate feedback from all the other relevant stakeholders, which then further helps you to evolve the idea. So which, in this case, resulted in developing new ideas and approaches, which then later on have been applied and scaled in different ways throughout all the other provinces of the country. Impact of that process over multiple years was a significant change in the outcomes at issue, kind of maternal health. But more importantly, throughout this prototyping stage and then the co-evolving, the scaling stage, more importantly, what you see here is that both on this side of the cycle, the co-sensing, and then the co-creating side of the cycle also, what are we dealing with? We are basically dealing with people. That means kind of with relationships across institutional and sector boundaries. And that's kind of really what changed, kind of how people connect and communicate with each other, how they connect to the larger system, but also to themselves. And in a simplified version, you can say they moved through a mindset shift where initially they saw the system like this, which is basically something out there, towards another perspective that is seeing the system in a way that is including the self. So that's, in which the system is not something separate. You begin to reflect about the intertwined relationship between the self and the system that you're dealing and engaging with. So that mindset shift from this kind of perspective, the system is out there, to this kind of perspective, which includes myself and my relationship to others, is really what makes all the difference. And on the level of the individual, that shift we refer to usually as mindfulness, or as a self-reflective capacity. Mindfulness is the capacity to connect to the now and to paying attention to your attention, to not just be absorbed by the objects around you, but switch on this meta awareness where you not only see something outside of you, but you also see your own seeing. So that meta-awareness, meta-level awareness is really kind of what we refer to as mindfulness, this self-navigation capacity. And when we go through the same process from here to here on the level of the group, and on the level of how groups are communicating, what do we call that? We call that dialogue. Dialogue is not people talking with each other. Dialogue is the capacity of a system to see itself, to move from a debate style of conversation this way to a more kind of self-reflective conversation this way, where you begin to see your own assumptions that are driving the conversation. And as you all know, that shift kind of from here, this kind of mindset and type of conversation to this kind of mindset and conversation, that's more than 50% of all change management. To move people from, a mindset where the problem is, the source of the problem is really all these idiots around me, towards a view of the system that includes my own contribution to the current situation, the problem, and thereby makes available leverage points how we can affect change. So in my view, the essence of theory U and systems thinking is about making a system sense and see itself. That's really the central leverage point of intervening in any kind of system, because the moment you succeed in making a system sense and see itself, the consciousness is switching to a higher level of awareness. So let's look at a few kind of quick examples, like a preview. There will be many more examples later on that we share in the u.lab, and we'll get into more detail. But just to give you a few pictures of what that looks like. So Ideas Indonesia Coral Triangle Initiative, probably the biggest multi-stakeholder initiative on this planet right now, focusing on the second most important after the Amazon ecosystem area of this planet. So lots of conflicts and different views. So first you form a little bit subset of that system, and you form a little bit like a container. So this group is going on a journey together. And here on the observe, you go in sensing journeys, in this case with the Bajau people, a tribe living on the sea, and sensing the system from their perspective to many other stakeholders, in order then to come back together and to synthesize everything that was learned. In this case, it's a 4D mapping. So 4D because kind of first you map each person is representing one of the key stakeholders in the system. And in this case, his role here is Mother Earth. So in his real life, he's a banker in one of the biggest banks in Indonesia. But the role he's representing here is Mother Earth. And kind of that role in the first stage of this mapping process, depicting current reality, was very much at the periphery. And then as it moved to sculpture 2, which is kind of the emerging future, more moving into the center of that constellation. Here is another example, ICBC China, the biggest state-owned enterprise in China, using the same process to reinvent themselves around big data, and therefore kind of remapping and recultivating the relationships with their larger ecosystem in which they operate. Alibaba, the biggest internet commerce company today worldwide. In this case, their top 50 people, the business unit leaders, looking at the larger system, all their interdependencies across all these business units that operate semi-autonomous. And you see here that they have a mapping, a 3D mapping. So they map the system with objects, and then they change it according to emerging future possibility. But they do that on many different tables here, and then share with each other what came out of that. Novos Urbanos, Brazil, it's a group of 150 people. It's a lab that is focusing on really advancing sustainable and healthy food in the Sao Paulo region, particularly for the underserved areas that have like the food deserts, kind of that have no access to sustainable and healthy food at this point. And, you know, from more than 40 organizations, people come together and you know, various small groups go through the same mapping process here and then share it with each other. So there are many more examples, and the bottom line is that we learned that actually profound innovation and change in organization and larger systems is possible. But in order to make it work, you need a high-quality container and holding space. That means it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of attention, and also, therefore, not cheap. So it takes kind of a lot of resources to bring all that into place. Therefore, my question always was, okay, we saw it here, we saw it there, and you know, I know many of you probably have similar examples of your own, but can that ever go to the level of scale that is necessary today, given the big challenges that we talked about in the beginning? That was always my big question and question mark in my mind. And it was only last year that for the first time in my life, I saw a way how we could address that level of change at scale. That means in a way that's accessible to everyone. And that is the story of u.lab that brings us kind of to our journey here that we are on. And that's what I'm going to share with you in our next clip.